Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Advancing Your Content Experience with Uberflip and Marketo. My name is Laura, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items for today's event. We are recording today's session, and we'll send it out to everyone after the session concludes. If you have questions during the session, feel free to send them over to me in the chat or the questions pane, and we'll answer them in a Q&A at the end of the session. So I want to start today with giving a quick rundown for the session so we all know that we're in the right place. Today we're talking about how to go beyond the typical content experience using Uberflip and Marketo. We'll deep dive into Uberflip's capabilities and features, and you'll see how simple the Uberflip-Marketo integration really is. Before we get started, I'd like to take a minute and introduce our speakers today. Andrew Hall is president and founder of Elixiter. Andrew is a veteran of the software as a service space. He served in a wide range of positions at Right Now Technologies, which was acquired by Oracle, overseeing product messaging, web properties, marketing automation, events, and marketing analytics. Andrew now leads a team of 45+ Marketo experts at Elixiter focused on best practice implementation and execution in the Marketo platform. Also joining us today is Sam Brennan, the VP of Strategic Partnerships at Uberflip, the world's #1 content experience platform for B2B marketers. In his 4 years at Uberflip, Sam has led fast-growing teams in customer success and partnerships that are focused on delivering world-class outcomes for Uberflip's 1,200+ customers. Prior to joining Uberflip, Sam worked in marketing and sales roles at Microsoft, TELUS, and Venture Accelerator Partners. Thank you both for being here today. Andrew, we'll have you start us off. When you're ready, the mic is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura, and welcome everyone to our webinar today. This is a special webinar for those of you that are Elixiter clients. Welcome, and we're happy to have you aboard. And we also know we have many on the line today that are not Elixiter clients. So Laura, thank you for just giving that quick background on who we are. Quite simply, we are a professional services company that lives and breathes all things Marketo, and that's all we do. And I specifically reached out to Sam and the Uberflip team to ask if they were willing to do a webinar with us. And for a quite simple reason, Elixiter uses Uberflip for our own marketing. We use Marketo, just like many of you. So we need to eat our own dog food on all of this. And we, both Laura and myself, as both practitioners and consultants, have just been really happy with what we're able to get out of Uberflip, the value proposition, and we just really felt we wanted to share that, not only with our Elixiter client base, but all of you that may be considering Uberflip as an extension of your Marketo technology ecosystem. So with that, I have the easy aspect of this whole thing, which is doing a quick intro and handing off to Sam. But Sam will really be your host today. He's going to walk you through what Uberflip can do and really show you how it seamlessly plugs into Marketo. And we have a whole range of very graphical slides for you, which is going to be great. So you can almost feel like you can reach out and touch what's going on. So with that, Sam, I'm going to pass it off to you, and we'll keep rolling here.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for the introduction, Andrew. That's fantastic. If you want to just jump ahead to the next slide, you can maybe jump out in front of things and hit the nail on the head of why we're here today, is to talk about how to move up and to the right, the best possible direction on the Marketo maturity curve, which you can see here on the slide. Now, as I'm sure most people know, I am the VP of Strategic Partnerships here at Uberflip. But before that, I worked in customer success. I led our success team for a number of years, and that has allowed me to work pretty in-depth with Marketo. So along the way, we've been able to figure out how to really make this a great partnership that really is pretty in-depth integrated into their ecosystem. So hopefully today, as we go through the slides, you'll see how Uberflip, when implemented well, can help you move through this maturity assessment and become a lot more advanced in your utilization of Marketo. So if you jump to the next slide, as Andrew mentioned, and as Laura mentioned, Uberflip is the world's #1 content experience platform for Marketo users in particular. Now, we do have integrations with a number of other marketing automation tools, but I think because of the depth of our integration with Marketo, Marketo users tend to get a ton of value out of our platform. Now, to date, over 150 Marketo customers use Uberflip, and on the next slide, you can see a couple of our biggest customers, including companies like Microsoft, Trimble, Rackspace, Altium, Workfront, really innovative companies that some of the world's largest brands are using Uberflip and Marketo together to advance their content experiences and get more sophisticated. Now, I want to give you a quick sense of how Uberflip works. So I'm going to run through these slides really fast, but you can integrate Uberflip into Marketo fully in under 7 minutes. I've done it hundreds of times, and I've got it down to under 7 minutes. And it's so easy to do. And I'm going to walk you through in a little bit more depth in a couple of minutes how that works, but it is simple, doesn't require any technical skills, and it only requires a few pieces of information from Marketo, and you're done. Once you have done that, it's time to start aggregating your content. Now, this is step one in any Uberflip implementation. And as most people on the call know, in 2017, marketers are creating more content than ever before. And whether that's blog posts, ebooks, white papers, sales materials, social content, or video, it is the #1 thing that most content teams spend their time doing. And typically what happens is that content gets distributed all over the web, which can be a little bit of a mess for marketing teams to manage. So by aggregating that content automatically into an Uberflip content hub, marketing team has, in many cases for the first time, a complete library of all of their content in one single spot. And once you've done that, you start to be able to have more control. And that is where you start to be able to manage your content. So if we flick ahead here, you'll see some of the high-level benefits of that. Overall, what you can start to do when you have your content in one spot is stop worrying about simple things like publishing it or getting it live or working with a web team to figure out where on your website it should go. And you can start to do things that actually add value, such as optimizing content for SEO, for engagement, for conversion, or starting to think holistically about how to build contextual journeys of content. There are also tools built in along the way that help marketers understand what's working, and there's a really powerful layer of AI that helps a lot with automation and reporting. So once content is aggregated, marketers have more control. They can really start to think about how to then use it at scale. So most of our customers will quickly and effectively deploy something like a resources center for top of the funnel and middle of the funnel nurturing, but then it's really easy to also think about how you can use content for campaigns, to drive people through the buyer journey, account-based marketing, microsites for events or promotions, even sales enablement and customer success enablement become possible once you have your content in one spot. And at the end of the day, hopefully all of these three things are going to lead to this wonderful fourth, which is keeping Marketo fueled with the things that make it quote unquote go. And that is leads and content engagement insights. So if you flick to the next slide, you can see when you've deployed Uberflip and when you're working in tandem with a group like Elixiter who can help you develop world-class strategies, what you have is this really symbiotic relationship where you can combine Uberflip's excellence in content experience with the right strategy, and that can keep Marketo fueled with leads, insight, and content engagement, while Marketo can then drive traffic back to that Uberflip content experience, and the circle just goes round and round and around, and everybody wins. So at Uberflip, and let's jump right into the topic of the day, we're pretty confident that the best way that you can move up the Marketo maturity curve is to focus on the entire buyer journey. Now, there's a reason for that, and we are pretty firm believers that in order to be productive, an organization really needs to have a solid marketing foundation, and that means data, people, process, and technology. Now, that naturally will lend itself to also tight alignment between teams, especially sales and marketing, scalable processes and programs, and a really firm ability to measure what's working and then put those insights to good use to optimize this entire process. So by thinking about the entire buyer journey, what a Marketo using marketing team is going to be able to do is get unparalleled sophistication about how to approach things. And mastering this buyer journey means mastering your foundations, and that's alignment, scale, and the ability to transform those insights into action. So what that actually means when you start to think about the buyer journey is it's a pretty simple process. And we flip ahead to the next slide, you'll see it's something that most of you on the call are going to be intimately familiar with. Now, at the far left, we've got the traditionally marketing-owned responsibilities, and that's to do things like generate awareness and drive engagement. Now, typically then sales is going to take over, and they're going to turn that marketing spark into considerations and decisions, and then the customer success or the account management team is tasked with driving advocacy at the end of that journey. So throughout that, you can see that content experiences can play a really vital role. At the beginning of the buyer journey, the marketers are going to create thought leadership hubs, resource centers, campaigns, microsites. But then once a buyer moves into engagement with a sales team, the content experiences change a little bit. And you start to think about it more in terms of account-based marketing or account-based selling, as well as for the ability for an individual salesperson to share educational and evaluation materials to help someone make a decision. Now, at that quote-unquote end of the buyer journey, and I say quote-unquote because it really never ends, but the customer success team is tasked with driving advocacy, and they can do that by using content experiences to onboard and train new users, as well as to power something like technical content and knowledge base. So let's jump back to the maturity curve, and I'll show you how all of this goes together, and how if you've implemented Uberflip, you can really master each one of these 4 stages of the Marketo maturity curve. And the first stage, of course, is kind of foundational. And if you're in the configuration stage of Marketo's curve, you're really building for the future. And you need to nail down your technical configuration, ensure you've got the right data, and definitely the processes to keep that data clean. You need integrations, you need templates, and you need a whole lot more. And using Uberflip is a really great way to ensure that you've laid those foundations in stone. And there's 3 big things that I want to highlight here. First, and you can flip to the next slide, there we go. By building a content hub, ensuring that the integration is technically done, you're going to have a really solid foundation for both lead generation and tracking content engagement. Once you've done that, there's going to be lots of opportunities to trigger and update programs based on Uberflip insights. And you're also going to have a number of cool and unique tools that can enhance the heck out of your Marketo templates for things like landing pages and emails. So let's dig into each one of these in a little more detail, and I'll show you some cool screenshots that highlight exactly what I'm talking about. So on the first one, integrating Uberflip and Marketo. You jump ahead, you'll see there are 4 pieces of information you need to integrate Uberflip with Marketo, and only 4 pieces of information. The first 2 are the client ID and client secret from a user that you've dedicated to the integration, takes 30 seconds to do, and the other 2 are the REST API credentials. Once you've entered those fields, you're about 90% of the way through the complete integration. It's honestly one of my favorite things to do with Marketo or marketing ops people, because you can almost hear the groans at the other end of the phone when they think they have to integrate with another tool. And when I show them this, there's you can almost hear the smiles coming through. So it's a really fun thing to do because of how simple it is. And once you've done that, the moment you hit enter API info, what happens is Marketo's Munchkin is automatically added to all Uberflip pages. So if you jump to the next slide, you can see a little illustration of this. And there's our Munchkin and there's our page. So the beautiful part is the moment you entered those 4 fields, you're going to be able to start to immediately track what your existing prospects are doing when they then visit this content hub. There's no additional IT support required. You don't have to get your dev team to drop scripts onto every owned page on the web. It's all automatic. And any new prospects who convert subsequently inside of this hub are going to have their cookies set by the Munchkin, and their activities also going to be tracked inside of Marketo. Marketers can then start to create Marketo synced form CTAs. And you can see an example of this here. And these are easy to create in Uberflip, and they pass all this information into Marketo the same way that a Marketo form would. Something like this is a really passive way, but a really effective way to add people into a newsletter subscription or allow people to request a demo. And it's super, super easy to build one of these. If you jump to the next screen, you'll see a little screenshot of what this actually looks like in the back end of Uberflip. You can quickly search for any form fields you might want. You can drop them in, and any single field that exists in Marketo can be used inside of Uberflip, including hidden fields, which can be really, really powerful. And these automatically can handle things like query string parameters, so attribution becomes really easy. You can also quickly enable things like progressive profiling, which is a really proven and effective way to increase conversions and also improve the user experience, which is a double win. Now, one of my favorite features about Uberflip and Marketo integration is what we call a form CTA that can gate a piece of content. So if we jump to the next slide, you'll see this beautiful piece of work in action. And what's great about this is that they make it easy to turn every single piece of content in a marketer's content library into a highly converting landing page. And that's ultimately going to keep Marketo chock full of leads and engagement insights. So you can literally create a single one of these form CTAs and have it gate thousands upon thousands of pieces of content if you wanted to, while still, of course, having the right attribution. You can just imagine the power of being able to create 1,000 landing pages in under 2 minutes. That would be pretty amazing, right? So with Uberflip, it's possible and it's really easy to do. A great example of this is somebody like Mike. Mike is the VP of Demand Gen at Workfront. When he implemented Uberflip, and they've been with us for about 2 years, they saw some pretty cool immediate results. Now, Workfront has a pretty amazing content library. They are doing some absolutely amazing things and just pumping out incredible content. And when they implemented Uberflip, they were able to reduce the amount of time they spent building landing pages by 66%. And that's a pretty significant productivity increase. That was time that they were able to give back to their marketing team to think about more value add things like optimizing content, strategy, but also time they were able to give back to their development team to focus on building Workfront rather than building landing pages. Now, the amazing part through all of this, though, was that even while spending less time building landing pages, they were able to increase the number of blog subscribers by almost 300%, which is pretty impressive. And that's because of these really unique CTAs that make it super scalable to deploy every piece of content as something that can generate leads. So number 2, Uberflip also does provide Marketo users with a pretty cool ability to build and trigger more Marketo programs based off engagement insights from their content hubs. So we jump ahead, you'll see something like this is unique to Uberflip. And this is because of the unique relationship in Uberflip between forms and content. What I mean by that is that because there's not the traditional one form, one asset relationship, you can use really unique custom Uberflip fields like this one to trigger workflows. This one is called the conversion item ID. We also have one called conversion item title, and they make building Marketo workflows a heck of a lot simpler, easier, and faster, because all you really need to do is listen for one data value to change, and you can go ahead and trigger your campaigns. So it's really quick to do. On the next slide, you'll see another really easy thing to do from a foundational perspective is update content links for current programs. Right? If you built out Marketo programs that are driving to existing landing pages or existing pieces of content, swapping out the links for your Uberflip hosted content is now really easy to do. And you can see in this screenshot here, this is a made up link for one of our latest ebooks, but all I'd have to do is pop into my templates, swap out those links, and that's automatically going to drive people into the content hub, which adds a lot of value because of how it's designed to maximize engagement once someone ends up in that hub. And last but not least, in stage number 1, Uberflip does have a number of very powerful tools like embeds that make it easy to dramatically enhance program assets such as landing pages, emails, thank you pages. So let's take a look at how some of those can work. Inside of Uberflip, every asset has the ability to be turned into a really cool embeddable image that can automatically link back to that version of content in the hub. Now, this makes it easy to incorporate content into websites, emails, all sorts of places, and all you need to do is copy and paste the code. So if you think about how you can do that inside of Marketo, you can see an example like this is how you can adjust your email templates. Right? If you think about all the email templates you have in Marketo that say, thank you for downloading that piece of content. Maybe you have a template to power your newsletter. You might have a template that's just part of a regular nurture flow. It's a good opportunity to inject additional pieces of content. Right? You can add a little recommended content option at the bottom of every email so that you can always encourage a next step and continue the conversation. On something like a landing page, you could also embed dynamic Uberflip widgets. We have something that allows you to pull content automatically and dynamically, and that gets updated in real time as your content changes in Uberflip. So if you've embedded this widget onto a landing page like this through the custom HTML editor, hit save, and you're going to add a really powerful element of dynamic content into a static landing page. And what this can look like is something like this. Now, this is the thank you page from today's webinar. And you can see that you could add a little dynamic a few tiles that say, thanks for registering. I hope you continue to read our content before you ever show up. And the beautiful part about this, in thinking about how this can work, is that if this webinar was scheduled 2-3 weeks out, before then, you're still going to get a whole bunch of other content consumption that happens prior. So when they do show up at that webinar, they might already be scored at a high enough level that you can have a really interesting sales conversation with them. So to quickly summarize stage one, if you have integrated Uberflip with Marketo, do it in under 7 minutes, and you're about 90% of the way to being really, really powerful in this stage. You can build and deploy your hub in as little as a couple of days if you're willing to work at it. You can update all of your Marketo program foundations to trigger off of Uberflip insights really easily. The embeds can really dramatically help to enhance landing pages and the performance of basic emails by driving additional content consumption. And it's really important to start to think about how you're going to track sources with form CTA. So use a lot of our hidden fields and our query string capture capabilities so that you understand what's working and what's not. So let's move on to stage number 2. Once you've taken care of your Marketo foundations, you can start to think about the more advanced automation. And that means things like lead scoring, segmentation, and lead lifecycle management, as well as sales enablement. And there are 3 things that I wanted to highlight about how Uberflip can help marketers to master stage 2. First, it's really easy to use a number of Uberflip unique custom fields to enable lead scoring. And these are entirely new dimensions, and I'll get into this in just a second. You can also get more advanced about how you structure your content hub to ensure appropriate segmentation and contextual experiences that are going to encourage engagement. And last, you can also use a tool we have called Uberflip for Sales to ensure that salespeople are helping the marketing team move prospects through the buyer journey, but most importantly, that all of that activity is accruing back into Marketo, which is often forgotten. So step 1, let's talk about how to use Uberflip custom fields for advanced lead scoring. I wanted to talk about a feature we have called flipbook tracking and content counters, which are 2 very, very unique Uberflip features. And marketers can use both of these to better understand how their prospects and customers are engaging with content. Flipbook tracking in particular can be a really helpful new dimension for advanced lead scoring, as it makes it really easy to understand how much of a PDF document or prospect, how much of a PDF document a prospect's actually engaged with. You can think about a bad habit that a lot of marketers have. It's putting a PDF behind a landing page and then not tracking it. So you actually don't know whether someone engaged with any of an ebook or a white paper. You only know that they requested to have access. So with something like flipbook page tracking, you can actually understand, are people engaging with every single page of the ebook you worked so hard to create? And because all of that insight's passed back to Marketo as a URL page view, you can factor that into your scoring and have very different conversations with someone who didn't read any of your ebook and someone who read every single page. We've also got 6 powerful dimensions that we refer to as content counters. And these are simply numeric counting fields that tick up as prospects engage with different types of content, such as blog articles, videos, flipbooks, presentations, posts, and tweets. Now, when you're able to easily and powerfully score a prospect based on the fact they've read 3 articles, watched 4 webinars, and read 2 ebooks, that adds a whole new dimension to your lead scoring and reporting. It's also just a heck of a lot easier to do because it's 6 simple fields that accrue all of this information. So you can use this to segment your blog subscribers into people who are rabid fans and casual observers, or find people who really love your webinars and then score them appropriately. So these new dimensions can really make an influence and have an impact on your lead scoring strategy. Next up, it's important to start thinking about how you structure your content hub, because context is very important. Right? We far too often see people only segmenting their content by type. And here at Uberflip, we're pretty fond of saying that it's rare for someone to wake up in the morning and think, geez, I'd really love to read an ebook today. Instead, it's probably more likely someone goes to a resource center with a specific interest from a certain industry or because they represent a certain persona. So it's time we started segmenting our content how real people like to engage with it. And that is by topic, by interest, by industry, by persona. And if you do that, your prospects are going to engage with more of your content because it's all going to be contextual. And of course, all of that content and that insight is going to flow back into Marketo. So actually I have a cool example that I can walk you through of a customer called Revenate that does a fantastic job with this. If you were to go to Revenate's website and click on their resources hub, you'll notice that you will not find something called content type, right? You cannot drill into ebooks. You cannot sort through blog posts. You are going to search through trends, topics, guest experience, all things that are probably way more likely to engage me. And what's great about the way this works is if you click into any of the posts in one of these contextual streams, and go to the next slide, you'll notice you also have contextual recommendations. Now, all the content that's segmented by context provides these really immersive experiences, so all the recommendations are also going to be about whatever a user is most interested in. And that can be really powerful, and of course is going to drive people to consume more content. And I think the results with Revenate speak for themselves. If we jump to the next slide, I'll introduce you to Carrie Murphy, who's the content marketing manager at Revenate. And this focus that they have on creating these immersive contextual experiences has paid off big time. Now, they've increased time on site by over 300%, and they saw a 500% jump in ebook completion rates because they're dropping people into these contextual marketing programs. And that can only help feeding that information back into Marketo because they're going to be able to improve the sophistication and targeting of their marketing nurture programs. Now, last up, I wanted to highlight Uberflip for sales because this often doesn't get talked about when it comes to Marketo, but salespeople play a really, really important role. Now, in many cases, sales shares more content with prospects than anyone, but far too often those insights get lost because they're not tracked in Marketo. And that is because sales reps have a bad habit of downloading content and sharing it without the Marketo munchkin being present. You can think about a PDF that's downloaded off of Box or Google Drive, attached to an email and sent off. Now that's great to engage your prospect, but it's a major missed opportunity for marketing and sales alignment. So what Uberflip for Sales does is put the power of marketing content into the hands of sales reps through Chrome and Outlook extensions. This is what Uberflip for Sales looks like in the Chrome environment. And you'll notice that the marketing team has built a library of content. The sales team now has the ability to find, package, and distribute that content to their prospects throughout the sales cycle. And it's drop dead easy to do. So if you look at the next slide, you can see an example that one of our sales reps might have put together. Now this is Adam. And you can see Adam has just got off the phone call with Jane and he wants to share some content with her. In a world without Uberflip, that is going to take the form of attached PDFs that aren't trackable and links that go all over the web. With Uberflip for Sales, Adam can simply find all the content he wants, package it together, and then send it off in this really great experience. And because the Marketo munchkin is automatically added to every page in Uberflip, every single time a sales rep sends one of these out, it's going to get logged in Marketo. And that often is an entirely net new insight for a marketing team to use. And if you jump to the next slide, you can see you can do something like look at a prospect record and start to see engagement with sales delivered assets. And this is a big win for marketing because you're going to start to be able to complete the full picture about the impact that sales is having on revenue. And you can even start to return the favor. Now on the next slide, you can see what a marketing team might do with that information is do something like create an interesting moment for sales streams activity. And that's going to alert sales reps when something important happens in the buyer journey, and it's marketing alignment at its finest. Sales wins, marketing wins, everybody is happy. So to quickly summarize how to master stage 2, you can use our content counter custom fields to really add sophistication to your lead scoring program and have that new element of aggregate content consumption, which can be very powerful. You can also create much more segmented and contextual journeys that are going to drive prospect and customer engagement through marketing streams. And you can use sales to really help align marketing and sales around the role that content plays in the journey. And when sales creates these one-to-one personalized streams for prospects, prospects are going to have a better experience, marketing team's going to get better insights, hopefully salespeople are going to close deals faster, so everybody wins. All right, on to stage 3. Now, in the third stage of Marketo's maturity curve, the engage stage, this is where it's really important to start thinking about engagement at scale. Now, that means a key focus on adding sophistication to your nurture programs, starting to do account-based marketing, thinking about personalization, and optimizing every little bit of Marketo. Now, there are three primary ways that Uberflip can make this easier. First off, by integrating Uberflip content into every area of a nurture program, marketers are going to be able to take a lot more advantage of the engagement benefits of an Uberflip hub. Second, by using Uberflip to engage target accounts as part of an ABM strategy, marketers are going to be able to drive content engagement with key accounts and also better understand who's ready for sales engagement by tracking that activity. And last but not least, using Uberflip and Marketo's AI tools together, marketers can ensure that their content experiences are ones that are personalized each and every time for individual users. So let's start by looking at how to integrate Uberflip thoroughly into your nurture programs. Now, whenever you've implemented Uberflip, this is the goal. All right? We want Uberflip to become the content destination. Whenever someone wants to read a white paper, watch a webinar, consume a blog post, hopefully that's going to happen in Uberflip. And when you're thinking about building a content distribution network of social posts, paid ads, email through Marketo, maybe an orchestration tool like an Engagio, an Outreach, a Sales Loft, or simply through SEO, you want to make sure that all of those links point back to the hub. Now, because that hub is also then designed to maximize engagement, hopefully encourage that Netflix-style content binging, all of those insights are, of course, going to get funneled back into Marketo, which is only going to make it easy to nurture your leads. But inside of Uberflip, you also have the ability to do cool things like think about content journeys. Now, we have a really powerful recommendations tool that allows marketers to suggest content using a mix of what we call marketer art and AI science. Now, it's really easy to set these up, but you can start to think about what that next best piece of content is in order to keep a conversation going. In an example like this, I might say, if someone lands in our ebook stream, I want the recommendations to then be about Marketo if they're Marketo users, so that they can go watch a webinar like this one, or go read an ebook about how Uberflip can sync with Marketo. So it's a really easy but really powerful thing to do. Next up, it's time to start thinking about how to use Uberflip to engage target accounts as part of an ABM strategy. And that's one of the really fun things with Uberflip right now, is that it's one of the only platforms talking about content management in the context of ABM. And that's a really powerful thing, because ultimately content is the currency for account-based marketing. So if we go to the next slide, you can see a great example of how this can work. If you've built your content library, it's really easy to deploy ABM streams by grouping content together for personalized targeted accounts. These ABM streams are really easy to brand, take minutes to create, and the assets, if you wanted to, can even be personalized themselves for your target accounts. It's a really powerful way to drive personalized engagement. In this example here, Double Dutch, who's been a longtime customer, is targeting someone like Visa by creating a very cool branded experience and then hand selecting the assets that they know are likely to engage people who work at Visa. And they can distribute that through email. They can use a retargeting tool like a Terminus. It's very simple but very powerful. Now, what's great about Marketo is if you're using Marketo's ABM add-on, because Uberflip is thoroughly integrated into Marketo already, all of that account activity is naturally going to be tracked through Marketo. And because Uberflip is designed to maximize engagement, it's going to be a big win, because you're going to get better insights into what content is working with your target accounts and which content is most effective at moving the needle with key people. And all of that is, of course, going to roll up into Marketo's ABM dashboard. Great story of this is our friends at version 1. So Jody has been just a fantastic thought leader in the ABM space over the last couple of years. And she's used Uberflip really well with each one of her targeted accounts. Now, she won ABM Program of the Year a couple months back at Serious Decisions Conference, and that was because she's built a really innovative ABM engine that uses a couple of platforms like Engagio and Terminus and Uberflip to create great content experiences that are successful at driving engagement with 88% of her target accounts, which is a pretty impressive stat. Now, last up, I wanted to chat about everybody's favorite topic these days, like artificial intelligence and how that applies to content. And with Uberflip, you can actually use both Uberflip and Marketo's AI-powered content recommendation tools to drive personalization. And I'm going to walk through how that works. First off, Uberflip partners with Bombora today, who is a leading provider of intent and surge data to help marketers provide AI-powered content recommendations to the people who visit their hubs. Now, what that looks like in the back end is that Bombora is able to provide Uberflip with a ton of data that highlights what visitors to a content hub are most interested in. If you jump to the next slide, you'll see what that looks like. And this is the cool kind of dashboards that marketers have access to when they're using the Bombora integration. It's a fantastic little spider chart that shows around the outside what people to a hub are most interested in. And then these colored overlays tell you where you have content that's addressing those interests or where you have opportunities where you need to invest more time. And that makes it easy to ensure that a marketing team is firing on all cylinders and only investing in what's working. On the front end experience for people who visit a prospect or a content hub, if you go to the next slide, you'll also notice that Uberflip takes a lot of that proprietary Bombora data and powers personalized recommendations for the people who engage with content. And that shows up as really, really visual and engaging content recommendations on the left side of a hub, at the end of a post, and these fuel a lot of engagement, and the click-through rate on these is pretty phenomenal. We also do have a website widget, if you jump to the next slide, that makes it easy for marketers to deliver those same intent-based recommendations to the people who visit a regular page of their website, such as pricing, product, or services. And it looks exactly like what they can expect when they eventually get to the content hub. So the click-through rates tend to be very high. Now, probably sounds a lot like Marketo's new content AI platform, if you've seen it. And the messaging is definitely similar, but the beautiful part with Uberflip and Marketo is that it's not mutually exclusive. You can use the two tools together, and it's very, very powerful. Marketo's new content AI platform is a fantastic tool that can deliver personalized recommendations, but the one thing it doesn't do is think about the end destination of the personalized ads and recommendations that they're serving up. And of course, if you're not thinking about the end destination or what happens after the click, you're missing out on a major opportunity to drive engagement. So by using Content AI and Uberflip together, it's really, really easy to optimize things across the entire buyer journey. You can drop the Content AI tag onto an Uberflip page in about 30 seconds. It's really quick and simple to do. And then that's going to allow you to use Marketo's Content AI to recommend content that lives inside of Uberflip. And when you factor in, again, the personalization that Uberflip offers natively, what you have is this extremely powerful combination that's ultimately going to deliver a lot more personalization. It's going to drive a lot more engagement. And then, of course, it's going to funnel all of these magical insights back into Marketo, where you can use them for segmentation, lead scoring, and nurturing. So to quickly summarize, in stage 3, if you're really looking to master it, make sure to integrate Uberflip into every element of your nurture programs. Really make it the destination for content. If you're starting to think about ABM, make sure you're creating streams of content for your target accounts. The people on the receiving end of these almost have a wow, I can't believe this is being designed for me reaction when they see these, and they're really effective at making sure people engage with the content you want them to engage with. And you can also deploy Uberflip and Marketo together to make sure that you're driving maximum personalization. Alrighty, so we're on the home stretch now. The final stage of the Marketo maturity curve is where you really need to start thinking strategically about ROI, advanced attribution reporting, and the global or organization-wide scale of your marketing efforts. Now, Uberflip can help in 3 places, as you might have guessed, when it comes to mastering stage 4. First off is because we have insights that help you understand aggregate content performance, you can use those insights to start to understand how your content's performing and then funnel those insights back into Marketo. You can also use Uberflip insights in Marketo to understand the impact that content is having on revenue. And you can do that both in Marketo or through Salesforce, or if you're using a tool like Visible, if you want. And then last but not least, you can also use Uberflip to establish an organizational-wide commitment to content, which can be really effective. So let's start by looking at the insights Uberflip offers. Jump to the next slide. You'll notice we have a proprietary tool called Content Scores. Now, these help marketers and demand gen professionals who live in Uberflip every day understand at a glance what content's working and what's working best for lead gen, what's working best for content engagement. Now, these insights can be leveraged by marketing to invest in what's working and, more importantly, discard what's not. All right, if content scores are ultimately about opening up and optimizing a content strategy, that's naturally going to bleed back into Marketo. So investing in what works is the best way to make sure that your Marketo instance is optimized when it comes to the way you're using content. Now, marketers can also get account-based insights in Uberflip, and we have insights that are pretty straightforward, but allow you to understand how something like ABM streams are performing. In this example, we can see that visitors from this target account have visited a couple of times, they viewed content 13 times, they're not spending a ton of time engaging with that content. So of course, because these insights are being fed back into Marketo, it's really easy for us to start to make smarter decisions about content creation and our ABM strategy, and hopefully deploy that through Marketo's ABM add-on. Next up, we can start to talk about the importance of revenue attribution. Now, this is so important, especially if you want to master stage 4 of Marketo's maturity curve. Now, as every marketer knows, understanding how content is helping prospects move through the buyer journey is ultimately key to making smarter decisions about where you need to invest. If an ebook or white paper isn't contributing towards a close-won opportunity, it might be time to invest your time and your money elsewhere. And because of Uberflip's influence on driving conversions, marketers can easily incorporate a lot of that data into their first touch or multi-touch attribution model. Now we can take a look at quickly how that works. Now this is a very basic screenshot, but shows you how it might be set up. When a user converts on a piece of content in a hub, that conversion information is of course fed into Marketo. As part of a flow step, you could then add that user very simply into a Salesforce campaign if that's where you do most of your revenue attribution. Now, we do have customers who also get the same data or much of the same data through Marketo's revenue modeling tools, which is a powerful way to do it and something I'd recommend, or through something like Visible. But at the end of the day, because the conversion data from Uberflip passes so seamlessly into Marketo, it's pretty much plug and play when it comes to understanding how conversions and content are impacting bottom line closed revenue. And because Uberflip handles hidden fields so well, you can also think about attribution from a channel perspective. Now, this is a little bit different than revenue attribution, but understanding which channels are working is just as important, because you're going to need to know where to invest and where to invest your dollars and your time. So using hidden fields on every Uberflip CTA is a really, really scalable and effective way to make sure you're only investing in the channels that work and you're feeding those insights back into Marketo. Now, last up, I want to come back to this slide. Just jump one slide ahead, because I think it does a great job explaining how Uberflip can impact an entire organization. The goal when you're launching an Uberflip hub is really to democratize content. Now, you want to give everyone equal ability to find, leverage, and use the content that marketing works so hard to create. And if a marketing team has implemented Uberflip globally or across their entire organization, it's naturally going to lead to better alignment between the teams. It's going to lead to more centralized and accurate data and insights. It's going to naturally lead to better reporting and attribution. And ultimately, it's going to lead to a deeper appreciation organization-wide of content and the role that content plays in closing business. And that's ultimately what stage 4 of Marketo's maturity curve is all about. It's all about alignment. So to quickly summarize stage 4, now use a lot of the Uberflip Insights dashboard metrics to understand what content's working and why it's working, and then invest only in the stuff that works. You can also use a lot of the Uberflip conversion insights inside of Marketo to make sure that you're updating your attribution models, or that you have an attribution model. And that global company-wide alignment of marketing, sales, customer success, everyone that uses content is something that's just naturally going to happen if you've deployed Uberflip the right way. So definitely something to keep in mind. Now, in conclusion, jump ahead one slide. Uberflip, we're pretty confident that the most effective way to move up the maturity curve is to focus on the entire buyer journey. And because Uberflip is a tool that's designed to help marketers own the journey and create experiences for every single stage, if you implement Uberflip well, it's naturally going to lend itself to optimizing your usage of Marketo. And that's going to move you up and to the right on this curve, hopefully with the help of that little pink guy hiding behind stage number 4.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sam. That was incredible. I do have a few questions from the audience. I'd like to take a moment and answer those now. Sam, this one's for you. What are the top 3 things an Uberflip user can do to move up that curve?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. And I would say if I had to pick 3, I would probably focus on missed opportunities that a lot of marketers forget about. So one of those would be making full use of attribution. So using Uberflip hidden fields, using query string parameters to understand where people are coming from and how that's influencing conversions. That's very important and something that sometimes gets forgotten. Number 2, I would say something like sales enablement. Right? That's that often forgotten area that a lot of marketing teams are missing out on insights about how sales is impacting the close of business by sharing content that's not necessarily being tracked in Marketo. So using a tool like Uberflip for Sales or even using any sort of tool that allows marketers to understand how their sales team is using content and how that's impacting people moving through the buyer journey, super important. And last but not least, I think ABM, right? It's a very popular topic these days, but it's a great way to approach marketing. And when you've packaged content together into experiences that are effective at driving engagement with target accounts, and then you can use those insights inside Marketo, the wheel just keeps going round and around and around because you have Marketo's great ABM add-on, you have the Uberflip hubs that can help drive deeper engagement, and using the two together can be pretty powerful.
Excellent, excellent. Here's one. How do Marketo's content AI and Uberflip's AI differ?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's one that we've gotten quite a bit since Marketo's content AI was released a couple weeks back at the roadshows. But the thing I think it's important to keep in mind is that they are not mutually exclusive. Right? They can be used together, and they can actually complement each other very well. Uberflip's AI is all about driving recommendations that are intent-based when someone is inside a content hub already, and then using a lot of the data from that to better inform Marketo about what prospects are most interested in. Marketo's content AI does much of the same thing, right? We all ultimately want to deliver the right content to the right person at the right time, but what Marketo's content AI doesn't do that Uberflip does is thinking about that end destination. Right? You can plug all your content into content AI right now and serve up recommended ads to someone. Say, hey, you're likely to engage with this, this, and that because we know all this information about you. But you need to think about what happens after the click. So that's where integrating Uberflip's content with Marketo's content AI is ultimately the most powerful solution because you can recommend content through Marketo that lives in Uberflip that's ultimately going to complete that circle. So we have similar messaging. There's similar tools. We're both ultimately trying to drive personalized experiences at scale, but they can be used together, and I would highly recommend that Uberflip customers do use the two platforms together.
Thanks, and I'm glad you brought that up and mentioned that because Marketo's content AI is so fresh and brand new that there may be some that haven't come across it yet. So a great explanation there. The last question we have, how would you recommend approaching attribution?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Andrew, and maybe I'd be very curious to hear what you think about this. But I think it's one of those things it goes down to the individual putting in the time and the effort, right? So every CTA that gets created in Uberflip, make sure you've got hidden fields on there. Make sure you're using query string parameters. When you are thinking about the Marketo side of things, and Andrew, maybe this is where I'll rely on you a little bit. I think it's important to use Marketo's revenue modeler, build a attribution program inside of Marketo that works in a couple of different ways. Right? Like we've seen first touch be very effective, but I think multi-touch is ultimately what everybody strives to get to. And because Uberflip is just pumping data into Marketo, you can use that as part of a multi-touch model. And Andrew, I don't know if you guys have seen anything in your practice with your customers about how they've best set that up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we do with our clients is literally going through the process of making sure that you're even initially setting up Marketo correctly, so that question of attribution actually can get answered. There's obviously a lot of work in between when you set something up and knowing whether something's working or not. And for some clients, that sell cycle can be quite long, a month or two to 6, 12, 18 months. But to your point, Sam, if you're not even thinking about the question of attribution, it's way off your radar. So recommendation number one, and you brought it up in the presentation, is start thinking about attribution. And then once you start thinking about it, the good news is Marketo and Uberflip are wired where as long as you're thinking about your programs and your channels and when and where you're sending your data. You had a great example earlier in the presentation about sending that data through to a Salesforce campaign, and are you marking it as responded or not? Those are the sorts of devils in the detail aspects that really make the difference between attribution reporting that's valid and trustworthy across the organization and attribution reporting that may be partially correct is probably the best way to think about it. So we really recommend thinking through all that, and part of the reason we exist is to, you know, really help clients make sure that they're setting up their system so that attribution reporting is valid and trustworthy.
Absolutely.
Well, excellent. Those are all the questions that we have, so that wraps it up for our session today. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us. We hope you found it useful. Sam and Andrew, thank you very much for your time and effort today as well. And I just would like to wish everyone to have a great rest of their day. Thank you.